Hello folks, we're going to do a video on group discussion. Group discussion is a very reasonably stressful part of this whole hoopla because lots of people talking. You don't know, sometimes in discussion is too intense, sometimes it is too relaxed, sometimes it is dull. The group dynamic plays a role in your performance, so it's a tricky part of the mix. Fine. So I'm going to focus on a few key points to keep in mind specifically for group discussions. First, get in early. Even if the point you're making is not one extraordinarily insightful one, get in early. Because if it's a 12-minute GD and you don't get in for the first 2.5 minutes, pressure builds up. It's an internal dialogue that keeps happening in your head saying, look, hey, I've not spoken anything yet. And if that happens, the chances are when you do end up speaking, it comes out kind of more stupid than it would have otherwise been. So there is pressure, don't let it build, get in early. Make sure that you make some statement reasonably sensible to the point early on. That relaxes you. So it's a trade-off that you have to do. You can't keep waiting and then just looking here and there. You have to get in early. Right? Make eye contact, super important. Somebody is making a point, listen to them with your body, in the sense that please convey to the world that you're listening to them. And if you're taking from somebody, taking off from what somebody has said, speak and then divert and then go and speak to the whole place. Make eye contact with everybody. Gather one thread from somebody and then go on to speak to everybody. Super important. Don't get the discussion where you're just focusing with one person. That is absurd. But don't look into middle distance. And so pick up a strand and then look at everybody. Super important. Listen, super important. Lots of times it's very challenging because we're always thinking about this is the point I want to make, this is the point I want to make, this is the point I want to make. So that's running at the back of our head. So sometimes you'll be shaking your head, but your mind is practicing what you're going to say. So you'll come out and say something that's dramatically different. As much as possible, make it a discussion. So listen, take off and do. Sometimes you might have to suppress your genius point until its opportunity arrives. So till then you have to say, look, I'll go with the flow and then I'll bring in my point as well. So because of the two tracks running, the pressure to make something, convey your point and the pressure to be part of the discussion, we sometimes stop listening. So listen very well, that's super important. Being part of what's happening there is super crucial. Make allies. If somebody is saying some point that you had in mind, it's like exactly what I was thinking. I think you brought it up even better than I could have. Oh, exactly, I completely agree with you. Oh, this is perfect. Exactly what I also had in my mind. Something like that, where you jump in and agree and then pan out. So that person is happy, kuch agree kar raha hai, nice. And you're panning out and bringing everybody else into the discussion. There are two people who are agreeing with the theme. Everybody is like, okay, maybe it's an interesting idea. And in that moment, you've participated and you've done a tick, put a bunch of ticks in terms of your GD performance as well. So make allies, it's useful. Right? Take stock, especially the GD stalls. Sometimes GDs, we continuously worry about the GDs that become too intense. The more painful GDs are the ones that stall. Everybody is looking at each other and saying, we have discussed everything, only 6 minutes gone, or 4 minutes, we have to keep the same thing, talking the same thing over and over again. It becomes one dull thing. It says, look, before we go any further, I think it should really important to just take stock. I think the key points here are this and this. And the point against is this. On this note, I think if you think about it, this extra point is crucial. Done. So somewhere in the middle, closer to the end of the GD, but the second half, for the 12-minute GD, after minute 7, 8, you're in and say, look, let's just take stock, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 3 points for, 2 points against. That's where we stand. I think the 3 points for are more significant than this. I think as a group, we are headed towards a point where this has to be implemented. And you're good. You've taken stock. That's a good way to kind of hold up a GD that starts sagging. That's a good way to bring focus into the GD if points are all over the place. Just take stock, list everything what you've discussed so far and then say, hey, this is where we stand right now. Right? Don't speak too much or too little, very important. Sometimes the GD becomes like a hub and spoke thing. One person versus everybody else. You've taken a stand and everybody is talking to you. Or they're not talking to you, you're jumping in every third instance. And so wait for the GD to get its own energy outside of you. If you find yourself talking a lot, if you start at the GD, if you've set the tone, if you've set the agenda, and then somebody speaks and you've responded to that, then the first 3 minutes, you've had 70% of the airtime, then you should be like, look, I have spoken enough, so I'll hang back, you guys have a discussion. Don't say that, but hang back and let the discussion flow and then come back in. Now it's the time to showcase that you can listen, you can respond, you can take in what somebody else has said. Right? Speaking too little, I think it's an obvious point. Enter early and don't hang back. If you have a point, Tactically, you have to get in and say, yeah, that's a good point. I'll add this onto this. Right? Modulate tone and decibel. Very important. Very often, having a high volume helps. At least it helped me. When I would jump in and say, look, perfect, exactly what I was also thinking. Having said that, this is also another thing that we need to think about. And so, exactly what I was thinking. Having said that, this is another thing that we need to add. So nice. So you jump in, you agree, high decibel, get involved. The guy who's seeing is happy. He hangs back. Then you drop your volume, change your tone. One other thing to think about. Very interesting idea. I completely missed this in the first iteration. You're in. You move your body. You point out with your fingers, and then you're in. So you're modulating your tone and your decibel, going in high volume, coming back to low volume, making a very serious point, and then making a wry additional sarcastic point. All of those things can make a huge impact on the momentum and flow of the GD. So practice getting in one volume and then continuing with a lower volume, jumping in with a smile and withdrawing into a serious discussion, jumping in at a serious point and then exiting with a smile. All of those things matter. That's how we discuss. So mimic that. Right. Bring in relevant facts. It's super important. Sometimes we keep talking about crime rates have been increasing across the place. Inflation has been on a steady upward trajectory. Unemployment numbers are high. All of these are fast. Suppose you say unemployment rate was X%, now it is X plus 2%. Companies are firing. We have had 140,000 layoffs in the tech industry alone in the last 4 months. Inflation was 4.2%, now it has gone to 6.8% in just a 4-month journey. If you can bring those numbers, facts, details, the value of what you bring in goes up. If you know the facts, and it helps to really know the facts, you need to bring them in. Make sure that you speak with detail, numbers, facts, and not just global ideas, themes. Be polite, super important. That's absurd. I don't agree with you. So you think this will happen, huh? Just because of people like you, this happens. None of that. Don't be condescending in a GD. Don't put down somebody else consciously, subconsciously, with words, with gestures, with body language. None of that. Be ultra polite, ultra courteous. You can disagree. You can disagree with ideas, with opinions, with thought processes. You don't put down a person. Look, somehow I don't see myself nodding in agreement with that, because I think these 2 points are way more important than that. And I would like to bring it to your notice here. Done. Oh, what you're saying is absurd. No, it's not an attack on a person. It is a point against an idea. Keep that in mind. If you've not spoken too much, look to summarize. If you've not said much, then take stock and say, look, because there's a decent chance that at the end of the GD, somebody will say, look, the GD is over, you didn't speak much, why don't you summarize? At least you're ready for that. Even if you don't enter into the GD, you're ready for the summary straight away. That'll help. Sometimes if you can sense that the GD is going to stall, think of a tangential point that you'll bring in later on. Another viewpoint that we need to consider, not among the first 3-4 ideas, but sometimes I think this also plays a role. Bring that in. So if the GD stalls, what do? That's one thing. If you've not spoken much, you must be ready to summarize. Okay. Last point, a smile. Participate in the discussion. Be part of the group dynamic. Don't always be in your own echo chamber of saying, how do I make a point? How do I make an impression? As the judges watching me? Is this guy right? How do I disagree? Did I come off well? Was my body fine? That track will be there. Dial it down. Be as much as possible in the moment and dynamic of the GD. Wear a smile. Very consciously look to be happy with the fact that you're having that discussion there. Don't do a fake smile or a smug smile. What a silly point. Don't do that. But be part of the journey and be happy that you're there. Right? So, tricky exercise. GDs are not easy, but one bag of tricks and you can get that little bit better. Probably that's all that's needed. Right? Best wishes.